Hello everyone, welcome back to my standing. As you know, I'm a pretty huge Stephen King fan, and to top of it all, The Stand is actually my all-time favorite Stephen King book. And there have been some news about the adaptation. I was actually worried about it because I thought it was getting cancelled with COVID and everything. And we have some exclusive news previews on Vanity Fair, and I just wanted to do just a general chat about my thoughts about the changes they are presenting, some of the casting decisions, and things like that. So let's see. First things first. This is sort of the beginning, and I think the main difference between the old adaptation. There was an adaptation in the 90s, which was pretty well regarded actually, but I don't know. I liked it, question mark. I enjoyed Lloyd Henry the most, I think, in that adaptation. The actor they got for Lloyd Henry was wonderful. I think he really brought the character to the screen. And I think he is an underrated character in a book. And also, well, the rest of it was pretty cheesy, especially Randall Flagg. He was very memorable, but Jimmy Sheridan was his name. Yeah, he was pretty over the top, which Randall Flagg is an over the top character, but still. I think it had Gary Sinise as Stu, which is also great. I mean, all in all, the casting for the old version wasn't bad. They did merge some characters, but all in all, I think it was pretty great. But the main change, I think, here from this exclusive coverage is that the book is not starting with the iconic underground facility starts, which means no which is fine. I mean, it says here that it's going to do something very traditional, well, traditional for the modern television, I guess. It's going to start with the apocalypse already happening, and then it's going to do a bunch of flashbacks to the lives of characters, which the book had a mix of both, but it mostly did cover the backstories of the main cast, like with Larry Underwood. We already knew that he was an artist, and we already knew that he was kind of a one-hit wonder. His backstory was covered, the bits with his mother, and him leading a life of debauchery after being a quote-unquote failure, all that stuff. It was all there. Same thing with Franny as well. We get a glimpse of her. We know her biological father of her child, her life as a student. We pretty much know most of them and their backstories in the book. It's pretty linear. I think the only exception might be Harold Lauder, who is much more of a blank slate as far as his previous life at the beginning of the book before the apocalypse. We do find out some more general stuff about him. But yeah, that's the difference. Now, some of the casting I wanted to cover. First of all, I think that Joanna Depo is a great casting choice for Larry Underwood. I actually, for whatever reason, did picture him black as well when I was reading the first time. And when you hear the song, at least the at least the small part of it that was composed for the old miniseries, Can You Dig Your Man, Baby Can You Dig Your Man, and all of the talks of the Brown sound, I actually kind of pictured him as this R&B singer. Not that I am stereotyping anyone for being an R&B singer, but it's just, I don't know, it felt to me like he was black, but here we are. And Rita here, which wasn't, from what I gather, a character in the old miniseries, which is interesting. So I guess they're not doing some of the omissions that the miniseries did, which was understandable. I mean, it was a miniseries with the beginning and the end, set end, single season. Who knows what's going to happen with this series? And yeah, and this, at least for this screenshot, this feels more like a big budget production, because the last one had like 3 or 4 cars. And the sets for the time were pretty expensive, I'm sure, but they didn't show the scope, I don't think. And other casting, I think, that I wanted to talk. Firstly, let's get out of the way. Whoopi Goldberg as Mother Abigail, which actually is a bit of an inspired casting. I would really like her, to see her. And I'm curious about her approach to this role, because Mother Abigail is this character that's a very biblical character in nature. And by biblical, I mean the whole story is biblical, right? We have Randall Flagg, who is this seducer, the devil, the quintessential devil character, and we have this battleground. He represents the selfishness, the evil, the fear, and we have a camp in Las Vegas with people who flick to him because they find it easier to follow him than to face the apocalypse, the losses they've endured as survivors. And then on the other hand, we have Mother Abigail, who is this force for good. And she comes to dreams, same as Randall Flagg, in dreams to the survivors and invites them to come and visit her, to gather around her. And even though she is this messianic figure, she is shown to have faults as well. Not to spoil anything, but we do also have this element of her childhood, her guitar playing. I wonder if Whoopi Goldberg will play a guitar in the series. And she is a very crucial character, so I do wonder how much of her we're gonna see at the beginning. Will we see her from the start? Then another casting that I wanted to, of course, discuss a bit is Randall Flagg, which is going to be played by one of the Skarsgård brothers. And this is, I think, going to make or break the series, in my opinion, because with Mother Abigail, I don't think you can go over the top. I don't think she is that kind of character. But with Randall Flagg, and with the status he has within the greater Stephen King multiverse, It's going to be challenging, I think, not to go overboard, not to just indulge yourself. It is a very theatrical role. Randall Flagg is freakishly charismatic, but he is also very alien. He's not human. It's a thin line. I think they have to use him sparingly, which he was used sparingly in the book. He is a prominent character, of course, but it is a huge book with a huge cast of characters, and you really need to tread carefully with that. Next, we have Lloyd Henry, which I mentioned was one of my favorite from the book and the TV series as well. I think what I like about him is he balances out the Randall Flagg's posse, so to say, because he humanizes the other side. He is this character who got caught up in a life of crime, and he is put into the jail, and he is awaiting, and this is not a huge spoiler, but spoilers ahead anyway. He represents a character who was saved by Randall Flagg. So we see Randall Flagg here, and Lloyd Henry was awaiting execution and trial. He was going to be executed because his partner in crime was this sociopathic murderer. And Lloyd Henry is no saint, just to be clear. But everybody in the jail died, and he was starving. He was either approaching cannibalism or already did it. That's up to debate, whether that was a rat or a human being, when Randall Flagg found him. And he saved him from starvation, from death. And this puts him into this direct line to be his right-hand man. Unlike other people, it wasn't out of fear. Yes, Lloyd Henry does fear and respect Randall Flagg, but there's more to it. He admires him. He is eternally grateful to him. And that's an interesting relationship to explore. And on the right side, yeah, we have this picture of generic goons, which is whatever. But another character which I think is also going to make it or break it, and I think is actually the most important character of the series, as far as I'm concerned. And here he is played by Owen Teague. I think he was one of the cast members in it, funnily enough. And this is Harold Lauder. And why is he important? He is important in many ways. I think King created something very... I don't even want to say iconic, very important. If you saw, as anyone did, the rise of the new term incel, which represents this idea of men who are very toxic, loner types who are abusive to women and just bad news. He is the prototypical incel character. In the late 70s, when the book was out, we didn't have word for that. Well, I wasn't alive for that. But and only recently that this term has been popularized. I didn't even know what it means. But point being, he is the prototypical incel character. The trouble here with his casting, and I'm not talking about acting abilities, which I can't judge, I barely remember his part in it. The contrast with his character is he starts as this precocious but very full of himself character who is overweight. Now, I'm not body shaming anyone, but to understand his psyche is he is someone who was bullied, or he perceived in his head that he was bullied for his weight and appearance. He is unkempt, he is overweight, and he is deeply, deeply insecure about those things. He's also very much insecure and not successful in romance. And this is one of the main drivers of his character. And he starts as this overweight, unkept character, but he is one of the survivors of the apocalypse. And his neighbor, Franny, and Franny here is played by Odessa Young, I believe, which I don't know either. But he takes upon himself to save her because she's pregnant, and he sees himself as the provider, as his chance to shine, to become the man he always wanted to be. And within the series, he progresses. He loses weight. He starts to become more respected in his community of survivors. But this is all a sham because he is still deeply, deeply resentful. Franny does not return his advances. He is enamored with her. Franny doesn't return his advances, but he kind of puts on this mask of a good person, a person who grew, but he is deeply, deeply disturbed and up to no good, not to spoil anything. So he is a very important and very interesting character. I'm not saying that he is a sympathetic character. Maybe one aspect of him is, and I mean in real life, I even without the violence aspect, which doesn't really happen here in my country, but I don't think I would get along with this type of person. But even though he thinks he is brilliant and full of himself, he is actually smart. And I think they will also be threading a thin line, more so than with Randall Flagg. Because Randall Flagg, at the end of the day, is not human. He is this demon in human flesh. And Harold is a human who made his choices, who had multiple occasions, multiple chances to turn for good, and we'll see what they do with him. And another thing that I wanted to comment, which is, well, Amber Heard is Nadine, which is an important character. I saw Amber Heard in like 2 movies. I'm not too sure about her acting abilities, to be fair. But actually what I wanted to comment is his boy here, Joe. And the issue I have here is very nitpicky because, I mean, this screenshot is probably out of context. We don't know when is this from. I mean, it has a guitar, and in the book, famously, this guitar was given to him by our man, Larry Underwood, and he taught him a bit, and the boy was very talented with it. But I guess I always pictured Joe to be much more, I guess, a wildling type of kid, more feral. Feral is the word I'm looking for. And here he looks well adjusted, which in the book, it took a good part of the book to even make him talk, really, to say a single word. So that's that. And here we have Franny. Unfortunately, there is no Stu. And Stu is another pivotal character, and he's especially emblematic character as far as Stephen King goes. He is this quintessential everyman. There is this quote, and I'm paraphrasing in the book: "Country is not dumb." He is this character that Stephen King loves very much. This folksy type of wisdom character, but a force for good. Everyman, good guy. So that's it. What do you think about this end? What kind of expectations do you have? I'm really curious about the soundtrack as well. I think the cinematography is going to be great. From little snippets what we saw, I hope that the trailer drops soon. And I do deeply hope that it's going to be good, because it deserves to be good. I also hope they're adapting, and this is unrealistic, that they're adapting the expanded edition of The Sand, which adds like 200 or 300 pages. And those are worth it, if only for that chapter, which is pretty much out of the blue, out of context chapter, where King just does these 60-second vignettes of people dying in the apocalypse from dumb stuff. And it was just hysterical when I read the extended edition, and I do hope it lives up to that. I do recommend the extended edition, and I also recommend the audio edition, which is on Audible. It's excellent. The narrator is wonderful. I don't think the narrator read anything else by Stephen King, but I wish he did, because he is just the embodiment of that. His accent is amazing. I love it. And that's that. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye-bye.